Welcome to the StockMentor.com studios. I am your stock mentor, Brian Johnson. And did you guys pass the link around? Did you tell your friends about it? You what? You didn't? Well, how are they supposed to get in on this move to the downside we're all been watching? All right, so we did break down today. Markets, bears took over. Broke one of these levels. We're waiting for a break above here. We're waiting for a break below here. I said 10,050 area for the more conservative. And we actually had a gap down even below that today. And then it was just straight down the rest of the time into what? Heavy, heavy support. I know it's almost voodoo-like how these lines work sometimes, guys. But if you understand the psychology behind why they do what they do, it's really not all that baffling. So here we are, sitting down here on support. Had a little bounce at the end of the day. Was it shorts covering? Was it buying coming in? Little early to tell yet. I'm not convinced necessarily that this move is over with. I'm still remaining a little bit more neutral to bearish here. And obviously, if you did not get short, sometime during the day, you got to be very careful down here. You're kind of chasing it down in these areas. However, your next opportunity, if you really want to try it, is below this 9,800 level down here. Got to be careful at the 9,750, but 9,800 would be your next attempt to maybe try a little bit of a short down in here. Want to be cautious. Want to be careful for sure with your stops once you're in, because we are stretched, but doesn't mean that we can't continue downwards. Very typical of a wave 3 to bleed people to death. Look at this, coming right back down to what? The blue line. I mentioned this yesterday as well. If we got below this level, to watch the blue line as my next area of support. It held very nicely today. So we do have support sitting down here, and where's that at? Yeah, now right now it's right about that 9,800 level. So another reason for a break below 9,800 to kind of stick your toe in. Just got to be careful that of the wicks comes down, comes back up. We'll see if that happens tomorrow. However, no reason not to think that we can't revisit this area again tomorrow sometime, maybe in the morning, if nothing else. So watch the 9,800 level on the Dow. Moving on to the NASDAQ, you can see the 60-minute also had the big gap down today. Below 1830 was my area to get short, had the gap down below it. If you played it short today, you did make some money on it. Very tough to short the NASDAQ. As I mentioned, however, the mark was really below 1830 and or really below the 200 on the daily. Now we did see a close below that yesterday. It wasn't really, it was more on it than anything. I don't necessarily call that a close below it, but so it would have been, I'm not sure I would have gone short yesterday on a break of the 200. We are very stretched down here. It is the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ tends to be a little stronger of the indices. I'd rather play this one to the upside. However, if you did get into the short side, below this line was ultimately your area to hit if you did not catch it from the open. Coming down into what? Yeah, the blue line. Now, it did duck below the blue line a little bit further than what we saw on the Dow. Coming back to rest at it, on it, below it, whatever it might be. Your next heavy, heavy level is right back in this area, somewhere around the 1730 to 1740 area. From a weekly now, we're coming back to touch what? Yep, this heavy, heavy level down here, and that is where? Right about the 1730 to 1740 area. Notice that the 200 is very close. So any push down in the NASDAQ, that would be my logical place to look for some support. That is still 30 points away, and 30 points on the NASDAQ is a pretty decent trade to the downside. Watch that closely. Any break of 1734, another great place to dip your toe into the short side. SPX on a 60-minute, also seeing a big move down today. Crashing through this area, crashing through the what? 1065 area. Yes, that was one of my areas to get short. If you caught that on the move today, you did very well. It was good for about 25 points today alone. Love it when the markets move and move fast. It's great, especially to the bear side. Very easy to make money to the bear side. Coming down, breaking this lower support. This is interesting, very interesting from the SPX side. Notice how once we broke it, we held, and held, even at the end of the day on that run up. This trend, my friends, is strong. Continuing to be strong now over the next last couple days here. Here we have the move down. The little low base formation that we kind of had setting up below that 1068 was a great level. Below this area was a great level. Either one of these places made for great entries to the short side today if you caught it. Definitely room for the 1055 area. Was one of my areas. 1050 area maybe was one of my areas. Any one of them made you at least, I don't know, 10, 15 points on the move itself. Still liked it to the downside. Told my subscribers that yesterday, that my gut was still to the downside in this move, and that was ultimately what I was watching. I even gave them some evidence of why I thought that to be true. It turns out we got a very nice move on it today, so good money to be made there. From a weekly, coming right back down into heavy, did I mention heavy? Support. This is very heavy support right down in here. You want to be watching this closely. Will it hold? It's only Tuesday. We've got quite a bit of week left, but any breaks down and below this area here still give you opportunities to play it short. Want to be very cautious. We've met it a couple of times, and all these times have held. So, want to be, like I said, cautious. You want to get in, that's fine. I don't have a problem with you taking that trade, but you want to be careful to begin with so that you don't, just not set a stop. Or, yes, this is absolutely going down, and set a really, really wide stop and end up giving some back on a potential bounce by the markets. Remember, this is a weekly chart. It is only Tuesday. We have a lot of time left for anything to play out. The VIX coming back up into this little yellow zone here, approaching the heavier red zone. If you look at the weekly, this is more evident here. This is my red zone. We are back into the red zone. Let me go back to the 60-minute on the VIX. Back into the red zone here. I should probably adjust these levels. Overhead here at about 37 on the VIX. Watch that closely. We did get confirmation. Notice how VIX way up today. Okay, so for those of you that were following along, buying options down in here was a good time. Able to make a lot of money off the volatility from the VIX. Here on a weekly, it's a little bit early yet, but we are back into the red zone, meaning there's a lot of fear coming back to the markets. This could be a pullback before a launch upwards. If it does continue upwards, guess what? 50 is your overhead level. That's a long ways to go for the VIX. Apple on a 60-minute could not hold the channel. Almost had a trade on it yesterday. And wiping my brow. Glad I waited until it got back up over that 50 to take that trade. As it turns out today, I'm happy with that. Of course, it could have gapped up, and then I would have been unhappy. But in this case, it worked out very well for me. Coming right down into and sitting at lower support here. Now, we did get a dip below it. A cut above it, only to come right back below it again. The markets are chewing away at Apple. It just is having a hard time finding its footing down here. I still, good opportunity here to get short if you wanted to get short. That was my area right in through here. I still struggle with shorting Apple because it's such a strong stock, but for those of you that are Apple players, there is opportunity here to play Apple to the downside, maybe even as far back as this line or below it, back to the 240-ish area. Wow, that would be quite a move in Apple. From a weekly, now clearly below this blue line. This is eventually going to get the stock one way or the other. It tried to get above it, couldn't do it. It held above it last week, couldn't do it this week. So where's my target? Right back here in that lower 240 area, for good reason. FAS on a 60-minute also dropping down here. Had people make very good money on FAS and FAZ today. From what? Yes. A day trading standpoint, one of my students has been swing trading it, and he's done very well on it. If you know what you're doing, I don't mind you doing that, but you should really stick with the day trading of these particular indices unless you're educated and know exactly what you're doing here. Here was your drop right below, back into this blue area, back below this area, all good entries to the short side. You can see the financials continuing to kind of bite the dust down in here. Now breaks below this 19 area will probably lead to more selling in the FAS, meaning more upside to the FAZ, looking at these areas up in here. Up in here. That's like a song, isn't it? So, on the gap up, notice how we came right into, I talk about this all the time, if you can't beat an area of overhead resistance, what do? Gap! That's right. Look what we did here. We couldn't beat this area right up here around the 1580-ish area, so what do we do today? Gap. Beautiful. And a straight run up all day long. Now, at the end of the day, we did get a pullback, so yes, maybe there is a pullback in the works for this. However, Until I see confirmation, I'm not convinced. This trend to the upside is very strong right now in the FAZ. Over the last 2 days has shown that this was my overhead target for you guys. The 200 rolling down and through here. Now, for you swing traders that might want to get in, I would really look at this area here above 1750. I don't think is such a bad place to start looking at maybe a long trade, and maybe even from a longer term long trade. Okay, that'll do it for today's videos, guys. If you don't know how to short, if you don't know how to play the markets to the short side, please talk to me about my mentoring courses. Give you everything you need to know to be confident in the markets, about your entries, about your exits, when to get in, when to get out, how to short, what to play if you can't go short but want to short the markets. All of that is included in the course. It's well worth your time, well worth your money. And thank you so much for spreading my link around. I do appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.